This is the Wandering Mike.
Welcome everyone to the Wandering Mike. Today I'm here with Natalie. Hey Natalie, how you doing?
I'm well, Mike. How are you?
Doing pretty good. It's a nice morning over here, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. I think it's going to be an interesting and inspiring one. Um, so to get us started, if you just want to introduce yourself to the people, tell us a little bit about your life, your journey, what it is you do, anything you want to share.
Thanks. Well, first off, I want to thank you for giving me the most valuable thing you can give in your life, which is your time, and also sharing your audience and trusting me to be with your audience. So I don't take this lightly. So thank you for having me on the show. And I'm looking forward to the deep dive that we're going to get into because we were talking before the recording. So I think we're going to get into some interesting aspects. So my name is Natalie Bedard. Most call me Nat Nat, Nat Nat. Yeah, you heard that correctly. Some people feel a little uncomfortable stating that nickname, yet I use the nickname because the work that I do, which is an energy healing specialist, which means regulating the nervous system. And the one thing you need to regulate the nervous system is play, because play allows you to untether your curiosity to open up. And so the work that I do is offering deep listening and inviting people to feel in a world that doesn't want to feel their emotions, yet they want change, they want healing, they want growth. Well, guess what? If you don't want to run off of a script that isn't your own, beginning to feel your authentic emotions allows you to take charge of the choices and not have, fear and anger, which are, protective emotions that are protecting you from the vulnerability. So when you allow yourself to release those habitual feeling of emotions and you allow yourself to question, what am I protecting, and drop into that vulnerability, that's where you start to really see magic and you begin trusting and removing the doubt of yourself. How did I get to this? Well, if we rewind 10 years ago, I almost died. I had lesions in my brainstem and in my cerebellum, and I was hospitalized for almost 40 days. And they told me that I had like 6 months. And yeah, you heard 40 days. So if you're in a hospital for 40 days, you're going through a lot of tests. And I went through a lot of painful testing. Yet in that, they released me without a diagnosis. So without a diagnosis, that means you don't have a plan. So I had to be in the wilderness and start to learn things about myself, start to prioritize things, start to feel my authentic emotions, which was very messy. And thankfully, a year later, I discovered meditation. And meditation then brought me more profoundly within my body. I was in my head a lot, trying to analyze, trying to predict the future, trying to control things. And I wasn't fully in my body. So meditation allowed me to drop into my body and remove a lot of the trauma, the suppressed emotions. Because in basic terms, trauma is separation from self. And so once you can start returning back into self, it feels very uncomfortable, and I call it warrior work. Yet once you start doing that, there's a profound truth and wisdom that you start to connect into, and you start to trust the information your body is giving you. And, there's always a conflict going on because there's been so much doubt of, do I trust my intuition? Do I trust that gut's instinct? Yet also recognizing that there's been this kind of polarization on your vision. So you've been so accustomed to blame on the outside rather than take ownership of how you're feeling. It's much easier to blame others of what they're causing within me rather than say, I am feeling this way because of somebody else. yet we usually shelter and don't want to express our emotions. So in this decade, I had to learn a lot of things, and what I didn't mention is that I'm a solo parent. So when I had the lesions in my brain back in 2014, I had twins that were 4, and I had a 18-year-old that was caring for my son. And I learned meditation in
Right.
2015, and when they teach you meditation, they tell you to cultivate a quiet space in your house. And the form of meditation I learned was TM, Transcendental Meditation. And as you heard, solo parent to twin boys, quietness doesn't exist. So I had to make a decision of taking meditation into the living room, onto the couch when they were fighting, energized, TV blaring, and allowing myself to regulate my nervous system even more when it wanted to pounce and jump and yell and
Right.
interfere in how they're fighting and wanting the TV to turn down and what's this noise and what's that noise, and really having a better understanding of our impulses, our programming of our nervous system, understanding how curiosity, we don't even know how to let it be untethered, and we want to predict what's gonna happen to make it stop instead of letting things unfold. And by, doing that warrior work of that meditation in real living with, the twins and everything else, it gave me profound wisdom and really helped me to start shifting my perception and also shifting my role of parent and not thinking I knew it all, allowing them to recognize they have their own intelligence too, yet they're reflecting a mirror back to me that I don't want to see that image of myself. I just want you to be something that doesn't stir up my emotions and my fear. And, as I say to a lot of my clients, the highest spiritual practice you could have about learning about yourself is parenting. If you're willing to look at that mirror your children reflect back to you, you can have profound depths of connection within yourself. The parts that you thought you left behind and, you polished up and put in a junk drawer, it's like, no, integrate that. You wanna be whole as a W. And so, it's been profound work, and a lot of lived experience. A lot of people ask me, like, "Where did you learn all this?" And it's like, life. Life gave me a lot of experiences, a lot of painful experiences where when we experience pain, we wanna reject reality. We don't wanna be in the new reality because sometimes the new reality is like nightmare. Like, my close friend of, 25 years just transitioned in my arms on the 27th. And so right now I'm going through grief and, you know, my mind, like, thankfully I have the tools that I have, yet it's still having to navigate when your mind wants what it knew before and doesn't want to accept what's here now in the as is. So, and to be able to accept that, you have to allow yourself to feel some emotions. Is it messy? Does it suck? Yeah. Yet the more that you're honest with yourself and you can allow that authentic emotion to be felt and expressed, the more that you can come back into a stability and be like, okay, what do I show up for? Yet at the beginning, if you haven't felt your authentic emotions, it takes a while to process them, but it doesn't mean it's always going to be that way. Yet you have to make the choice to show up for yourself.
Yeah. So we just had a nice insight into your own journey, how you arrived where you are at the moment. Um, you kind of said it as well. In the beginning, it might be really difficult to do all these things and maybe even being able to identify these things. Because if we tell ourselves stories over and over again and we basically disassociate with all these emotions, um, how difficult was it in the beginning, or also maybe for other people that it is difficult? How do you really build that self-awareness that this is what's going on? This is really what I'm feeling. This is not what I'm telling myself, but this is what is happening in my body at the moment. How how hard is it to really be in touch with one's body?
I wouldn't use the word hard. I would use the word challenging because it's a foreign place. A lot of times we've been told to feel a different emotion. Like, say, for instance, when we were young and we were crying, we were told not to cry. Or if we felt angry, don't be angry. Or if we wanted more of something, don't be selfish and be grateful for what you have. So we were not validated in our experience of feeling. We were always told to feel something different. So when you start to
Right.
feel, there's this doubt of what am I actually feeling? And is it safe to feel that? Because when I was younger, the older people, mentors, parents, adults told me I wasn't to feel this emotion, which was authentic at the time. Now you've created a script and a habit of a different emotion as a protective, and that feels more safe. So, how do I create safety for myself? How do I create safety to feel my emotions, to feel validated of asking myself, what am I actually feeling? And it won't be just one thing, it's a multitude of things that we're multidimensional human beings.
Well, how do I create safety for what I feel?
If you're if you're willing, would you allow me to guide us into a 2-minute mindful moment?
Definitely.
Okay. And for your listeners, because sometimes people are listening to this while driving or doing something that they need their visual. So when I ask Mike and myself to close our eyes, please don't. Safety first. Yet the other prompts you're able to follow with us. Okay. So, Mike, I'll ask you to get comfortable in your seating. And if it's safe to do so, I'm going to ask you to gently close your eyes. And you're going to begin breathing in and out through your nose. And you're going to bring your awareness to watching your breath go in and out through your nose. You're not going to try and control your breath. You're just going to be aware of its rhythm, allowing it to guide you into your body. There may be some sensations or feelings coming up, and that's okay. You're safe to feel, you're safe to let go. Surrender the need to control, release the need to resist, and just be. Be with your breath. Drop deeper into your body. Now, some thoughts or experiences may have popped up into your mind, and that's okay. Gently bring your awareness back to your breath, creating space between the awareness and the thoughts, and dropping even deeper into your body, allowing yourself to just be. Be with your breath. Again, more thoughts may have popped up, and that's okay. Bring your awareness to your breath, beginning again, creating even more space between the awareness and the thoughts, and dropping even deeper into your body, allowing yourself to just be with your breath, keeping your awareness with your breath. Now, at your own time and at your own pace, you're going to gently open your eyes while still staying with your breath.
does feel different. It's definitely more more aware kind of state.
Mhm.
So is that something that you can do? I mean, we just did it in the middle of a podcast. So is that a practice that you can do anytime in your daily life, basically?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people, they have the wrong definition about meditation. They think it's always to be used to calm yourself down, and yes, it helps you to regulate. And people think that meditation is sitting on a cushion and just,
Mm.
creating the environment. Where at the beginning, to understand what the practice is, yeah, you begin somewhere. Yet the whole purpose of meditation is to bring it in your everyday living, to regulate your nervous system when it's been dysregulated. To have a regulated nervous system all the time is not healthy. It's not a healthy nervous system. It has to react to different stimuli and certain things that have been defined as unsafe, or, be able to feel when the winds are changing or the weather, because you have to keep this human uh, body safe. There are things that are very threatening that could end the life of a nervous system, because the nervous system has one function: don't die. So when we use this method that I just introduced, which is free and able to access all the time, yeah, the world would benefit all the time if we slowed down and paid attention and opened up our awareness and expanded it. Yet, when we get caught up on the treadmill of our thoughts and being stuck in our head, how often do we remember to come back to our breath and ground ourselves?
Yes, that's what I wanted to ask as well, because what we just did, basically, we work with breath. So how important is that aspect of it? Is the breathing work, the breath part?
Oh, it's tremendously important. It's autonomic. We breathe automatically. So many people are like, "Don't tell me to breathe. I'm already breathing." It's not the
Right.
breathing aspect, it's being able to bring the awareness, the consciousness to activate the breathing, not just being led by something that's automatic. It's actually taking the manual aspect of it. So look at it as a vehicle. A car that's a Tesla, that's automated and driving, and you're not driving it at all. That's what most people are in. They're just breathing, they're not even paying attention to it, just bring me wherever I have to go. All of a sudden, I'm feeling or hearing certain things and, "Oh, what's the vehicle doing?" Then there's automatic, where you're pressing on the gas pedal and you have to, like, put it in drive, and some people are in that state. Where you wanna get into is a manual, where you manually shift driving the engine of your car. You're braking it, you're accelerating it, you're slowing it down. You wanna be able to take full capacity of your physiology. And by anchoring yourself in the breath, you can start to hear, is my heartbeat going too fast? Is the stress levels going too much? Can I activate by breathing also? You're able to expose yourself in certain situations, environments where you can start producing chemicals for yourself in a way that's going to be a positive feedback. A lot of people are activating their stress hormone, which is cortisol and adrenaline, and they're depleting themselves, and which is causing more illnesses in their body because their systems can't deal with too much cortisol in the system. It creates inflammation, and inflammation in the body impacts so many different organs. And then there's all these other diseases that people start to engage: high blood pressure, diabetes, all these different things that go on. We aren't taught to what's going on internally? What are the emotions that are activated that I don't even know how to engage with engage with, but that are just running and running and running. Like, say somebody is feeling angry. Most people, what they do is, I'm angry, I want to offload that. I'm not going to take responsibility of my feelings because it doesn't feel safe to do that. So I'm either going to get big and push people away so they don't come near me. I'm going to drink some alcohol or take some substance to take the edge off. Or I'm going to go into gaming and help the rage even rage out that way. Yet these are all coping strategies, yet at the end of the day, it didn't allow you to feel the emotion and release it in a positive way. It just got stuffed down even further, if that makes sense.
Yes. So let's take that as an example. Let's say, um, I don't know, I'm out with some friends and something makes me angry. I don't have a explicit example, but something generally makes me angry and I feel the emotion of anger. What is a healthy way in this scenario where you're out in public with people to deal with that anger?
I love when people it's like people wanna ask the biggest questions and think that they'll be able to get the remedy right there. It's like, "Okay, we're in a fire right now. What are the safety mecha" and it's like, you have to learn that before the fire. Yet, in that scenario, the first thing would be to acknowledge, "I'm feeling angry right now." Most people won't acknowledge that. They'll just brew
Mm,
in the personalization because something hit into your psyche that got personalized. Anger is being felt to protect. And either it wants to defend, so anger sometimes defends and lashes back, or it goes into solitude. It wants to retreat or run away. I'm just going to walk away from all of this. Or you can fawn while act like nothing bothered you, but still be in the scenario with people. So that's the 4 Fs, the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn of the nervous system. That's what
mm.
anger activates in us. The first thing I teach my clients is, okay, what is anger? And most of them cannot even define what the emotion of anger, why it's there. And anger is there to protect vulnerability. It's like anger protects sadness, which protects fear, which protects the vulnerability. Say somebody said something to you and you're out with your friends. If they don't feel safe enough, your anger comes up because it needs to protect. Because I don't feel safe
Mm.
to say, possibly, A, you insulted me, A, you belittled me, or I feel injured or rejected, or whatever other emotions that are very
Right.
vulnerable to feel. So the first thing is start asking yourself when anger is there, what are you protecting? So that the authentic emotions can start to come up, that you can deactivate that armament and start feeling internally. Is it going to be messy? Yeah. Is it going to suck? Yeah. Are you going to make mistakes? Hell yeah. Yet the most important thing is taking the accountability of saying, I'm learning and I'm working at this. But anger is not a problem. Anger is not an issue. Anger is protection. The behavior that gets hijacked, that is what causes issues and problems. But the
S-
feeling itself,
That was actually really interesting because you basically said it's a protective feeling of the things underneath, and it makes a lot of sense because if in that scenario I would just automatically go to, hey, this action, this comment just made me feel insecure because of these and these things, then I wouldn't feel the anger and I would just communicate, uh, yeah, sadness, vulnerability, whatever it specifically is. Um, what other emotions are protective emotions and of what? Because I never thought of emotions in that kind of way. Are there other emotions that are basically just protecting emotions underneath?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The insecurity is another protection. Shame, guilt are other protective emotions of not wanting to feel. Like some things that you do, like say if you've harmed somebody and you don't want to feel that, you don't want to look at that. Yet it is important to feel that so that it's imprinted. You don't want to repeat that behavior. But
Right.
most people don't want to take the accountability of it because it's very threatening. Because we're taught in society, don't make mistakes. Because if you make a mistake, there's a punishment. We're not in a space for
Right.
holding honesty and truth. We're in a space of holding judgment. Judgment is another one that, as soon as you're judging, it's protective of what's going on internally.
Right. Um, I mean, obviously, that's a problem. And do you see realistic ways to change that? I mean, we don't have to talk broad scale, but in general, um, do you see a way of these things changing? Of because the way our society works, it is um, you have to be successful, you have to succeed, you have to, all the things you just mentioned, and don't feel any of the other emotions. Don't like you already said all these things. Do you see that changing at all?
Of course, it's changing within my world. The clients that I work with and the clients that I engage with, they're making the change. Like people think change is on the external and it's not. Everybody wants the world to change. Just let the world change. Can the world leaders just change or this and that? And it's like change is only
Mm,
within yourself. You can barely even change or change certain habits and lifestyles within yourself. And you want other people to do that because you're feeling uncomfortable. So change is within yourself and it's recognizing, okay, if I'm not allowing emotions to come into our conversations, like when I say our conversations, the individual, then how can I expect change to be out there? What I'm doing in my world around people is making it safe to have emotions and not being weaponized with them. That we create that safety and that we create a new language. And as you were saying, that society, that's the biggest thing is the BS in the world. And BS,
mm,
when I say that, I'm talking about belief systems. They think they need to be in the narrative of society, like the success and the accomplishments and the white picket fence, and I got to do it in this kind of lineal, you know, this way of living in check boxes where it's like, did you realize that you're in charge of making definitions of what success is in your life? What fulfillment looks like? What joy looks like? Have you even asked yourself what it is that you want to create in this world? Yet most will say, no, 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 my parents want me to do this, or society says I have to do this, or this is, and it's like, I understand at one point you were relying on them for your safety. Yet now it's to create safety in your body and that you can be who you need to be in this moment and move forward into the becoming. Not in the becoming of what you think will be safe in the world, because that's a narration that other people planted on you. That you start taking the pen to your story and you start writing the words on the pages. That it's not somebody else running your script, it's your own. Does that mean you're still not gonna work at the gas station or you're still not gonna work at a Subway or you're not gonna be the CEO? No, it has nothing to do with those aspects. It might change, yet it's how are you going to show up? How are you going to feel your emotions and still have gratitude and grace and have acceptance? If you're in a certain position right now and you're only blaming everything on the outside, how are you gonna change that? There's no power in that. If somebody is in control of all your choices, there's no power in that. You have to also take responsibility of seeing, you know what, there's certain choices. And sometimes that choice might have been, I didn't believe in myself. I didn't know how to.
I definitely agree with that because I don't know, maybe 10, maybe even 5 years ago, I definitely had a comfort in kind of seeing myself as the victim in a lot of things because it's like it can seem like a comfort. It can be like, yeah, it's not my fault. Nothing is. But as you said, I realized at some point there also isn't any power in that because if nothing is my fault, then how can I ever change it? So that's when I gradually made that uh, transition to I'll just try and make everything my fault. I just see whatever happens, I will just try and see, oh, maybe what was my fault in this? What could I have done differently? And yeah, just to speak to your point, I definitely feel myself more empowered, and it really gives my life a lot. I mean, maybe that's too big of a word, but it gives me more meaning because I know everything I do is definitely what I do and what I try to be in my own way, the best way I could do these things.
I don't think that's a big word.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a big word at all. If you understand what your brain does, the reason why so many people have suffering is because our minds have been made to always make meaning of things. Yet I cannot make
Right.
meaning of why my friend transitioned on the 27th. But my brain wants to make meaning out of it. It doesn't know how to be in the unknown and the uncertainty, the parts that it cannot control. Your nervous system always wants to be in control so it can predict and keep safety. Yet you have to start wiring it to be in the unknown, in the uncertainty, because we're always in it. People think they control things and they actually don't. You don't know when there's going to be a lightning strike or the weather patterns are going to change. You don't even know if you go and eat something that you might have a physical reaction. You're not even able to control if you're going to get a cold or not. You can take all the precautions you want. Yet if life is going to life, life is going to life. It doesn't mean you did anything right or wrong. It's just that's the way life is. And people do not have, not that they do not, they haven't been informed to adapt and feel their emotions.
That that area of the unknown, obviously, grief is a very big one on that topic and is a very unique one. Um, but maybe also more general, how do we actually prepare ourselves for the unknown? How can we foster that acceptance of I cannot control everything? What is happening around me is happening. How can we come to terms and foster that acceptance in ourselves?
Most times it's acknowledging the fear. We don't even have healthy language of even expressing I'm feeling fear. How much things are marketed of saying be fearless, don't have any fear,
Mm.
there's no fear allowed. It's like your nervous system is built on fear. There's healthy fear. Yet there's a lot of psychological fear that we create to avoid the as is because we have expectations, we have certain narratives and stories that we've put on ourselves. So it's learning, okay, I'm activated. There's fear here. How do I allow it to coexist here, but not hijack my behavior? And I think that's the first thing of acknowledging again, like I say, feeling. It's how do I feel the fear. The big word for me this year is the word helplessness.
Mm.
How many people don't want to feel helplessness?
Yeah.
But if you allowed helplessness to coexist, then you can be more aware of the unknown uncertainty and change your perception around it, change your definition around it. Because most people don't want to feel helplessness because it feels like I'm going to feel a lot of pain, a lot of unsafety, which you may, because that's how life is. Life has pain in it. There's no avoiding pain. Yet we can alleviate the psychological suffering we put onto ourselves. And why do we do that? Because we reject reality. So to start having acceptance is starting to take inventory of what's going on internally. What are the narratives I'm saying to myself? What are the certain emotions that I'm avoiding or that I'm addicted to being into? That I can start opening myself up, that I can engage with the vulnerability, even when it feels life threatening. Yet I'm not asking or ever in forming somebody to take big leaps like I did. I had a different experience. There's some things that I took big leaps and other things it's small little steps. But people want these extraordinary changes. I just want big extraordinary changes and
Mm.
life doesn't work like that. It's in the ordinary that you start to see things change and flourish. So it's being able to have a honest space with yourself to ask, yourself, am I seeing reality as is or am I creating a narrative that feels safe? And also find people that you can have safe conversations with so they can be your feedback and you can start to be able to express your emotions and they not turn away from you. Community is really important in all of this.
Yeah. We also, or you also mentioned in the beginning when you talked about your children, them being a mirror. Um, is that kind of the same with the community aspect as well? That, and we talked about the change from inside. Maybe does it become easier to find people like that, or maybe not easier to find, but are we more receptive to people being accepting of us sharing these feelings when we actually do that change in ourselves first as well?
Definitely. It's like a transmitter. You're more open to receive other signals because you're working on receiving. It's very threatening to receive. It's very easy to give. It's very safe to give because there's not a feeling of rejection or feeling of lack or something being taken away from you. So when you start doing that change and opening up, then you're opening yourself up to receive. And you're also, when you start doing that change, you're sitting in your worth. So what you would have accepted at one point, which were scraps, you will now see that you are deserving of so much more. Because we're feeling bodies that think we go by energy. And the thing about our children, especially when you've birthed your child, nervous systems create other nervous systems. So your children have a certain frequency. A parent is a parent. So even though parents that adopted children, they are now assimilated in that family structure. You also got to remember that they have a history from their natural parents that have nothing to do with you. Yet, as a parent, you know what? We're very self absorbed and we want to think everything is our fault because the world tells us we're not good enough parents. So, a lot of people start to internalize rather than what is this human needing in this moment? So that mirror that, you start to see in the community, the thing about awakening too, you can all of a sudden start spotting things because you spot things within yourself. And that can
Mm.
inflate you of, oh, where no, it's supposed to create the radical compassion of just like me, you're not aware of what you're doing. But what do? We want to judge and belittle other people rather than remember, oh, just like me, I wasn't aware. Or you're mirroring something that I might not even be aware about myself, but I don't really want to see it. I'd rather be in judgment and put you down.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I again experienced about myself as well, is the things that I basically complain, or I don't know if complain is the right word, but that I say, "Oh, I don't like this about this person," and then in hindsight, I realized, oh, it's because it's a trait that I have as well, and it's something that um, is not a good trait in myself. So that's it's just yeah, it's so interesting because in the end we are human and we are all flawed, and it's like we're doing these things where we like you said, become more receptive and we understand things more and more, and still we judge and still we say, oh, I know this now, instead of saying, oh, maybe I can help this person to understand as well. Or it's yeah, it's that's the human experience. Hey.
Sometimes it's just being silent. We talk too much to offload the energy of our thoughts and think that we have to fix and correct and do. And it's like, no, you could just be the observer. As a parent, ask any parent when their child is doing something that's annoying them, how difficult it is to keep their mouth shut.
Right.
I gotta say something. I gotta correct it. I gotta fix it. I gotta, ah. Yet if
Mm,
you could be with the silence, that shifts things because you're taking responsibility within yourself. And let me put in like a whole warning and caveat. Humaning is difficult. Relating with other human beings is challenging and difficult. It's not always that they're reflecting a mirror into yourself. You also got to remember what they're doing has nothing to do with you. It's all their internal stuff. It's
right.
not always that you did something. You're just the dumping ground of what they're having to go through. Does that suck? Yeah. But that's the ebb and flow of things. Those are the evolution of karma and cause and effects and everything else. Like, it's not always like, unfortunately, people want a clear cut, just let me figure out how to do this living, where it's like, you have your wisdom within yourself. The one thing that I can guide you in is regulating your nervous system so that you can start to have that awareness and be able to live a life that's more fulfilling, to open yourself up to joy, and also listen to the guidance of what do I want to create? A lot of people aren't even in their gifts because other people have deterred them from doing that. But to think that there's going to be a utopia of a world, no, because there's no utopia in life. Life is carnage, life is pain, it's joy, it's beauty, it's violent, it's all kinds of different things. But not but we create meaning on it. So then that creates even more suffering and aversion.
Yes. Um, we touched a lot of things already in this conversation, and um, like subtly we discussed a lot of these things. But if you don't mind, I want to ask a little bit more of a spiritual question as well. Um, so I hope the question does make sense to you, but um, assuming, or doesn't matter if we're energies or not, whatever we think we actually are, what we truly are. But we talked about feelings, we talked about being human, connections with other humans. What do you think is the reason that we are here in this human body? What, why do we have these capabilities, these human connections?
I think, it's to experience this dimension, to really, profoundly experience the wholeness of living. I think that we come from source. Because once you start meditating and you're in that oneness, you recognize, oh, I'm part of everything. Like, why do I really feel the wind or feel the sun? Why can I see the stars?
Mm.
Why can I see animals? Why can I be around a person and we're almost in sync of what we're going to say or how we're feeling or so you come to see like, oh, we're much more connected than we are separated. So what is it that is experiencing all of this? And again, like we want to create meaning because it feels uncomfortable not having an answer to it. For me, the biggest part of it is how are you going to experience the life experience that's presented in front of you? And what are you going to do with it? To see what the capacities are, to see what the potentials are, to see what the depths are, to see what the body can do, to see what it can't do. Like, it's a whole experiencing for me. That's how I feel it in what source and these bodies are simply vehicles. We think we're our nervous system. That's what ego is. Ego is the defense mechanisms of the nervous system protecting you from vulnerability, which is the big S, the self, which is the one self. So once you recognize most people are in their nervous system and they think that's who I am. Yet, as I did that 2-minute mindfulness uh, meditation with you, I showed the space. There was a space, and it's like more that you create the space. Oh, I'm not my thoughts. I'm not these emotions. They're what help to figure out what this body and what these experiences are going through, what this character has experienced and has internalized and created definitions about. Yet the more that you come and see like, "Oh, I'm not part of this. I'm navigating through it." Like, when you're riding in your car, it's keeping you safe, but are you the Toyota? Are you the Mazda? Some people identify with it. I am my Maserati or whatever it is, like, that's my status and identity. Yet if it crashes, some people are debilitated, other people realize, "Oh, that wasn't me," or they're their home, or they're their career. But once that leaves, they realize, "But it's not me. It's not my identity." So this nervous system, this body function allows us to navigate this dimension of a world. Where it's bringing us, I don't know. It's what is the experience?
I think that's again a pretty empowering thing to really to really listen to. We're here to experience. And you also in the beginning of the podcast mentioned play being a very important for healing, but I think in general also to understand um it's not that serious. All
No.
this life, like whatever happens tomorrow, obviously, and again, there can be strong feelings connected with certain things that happen around us, to us. But yeah, we are not this one thing. We are not the job. We are not the house. And we just are here to experience a vastness of things. And that's okay. And we should strive to experience a lot of things during our lifetime.
And there's a process. Like, I'm saying I have all these tools. I just, like I said, my friend, we went through 2 years of chemotherapy. Um, she did 8 days of hospice. I watched a body, you know, deteriorate. I held her while she took her last breath. I put her in her body bag. I watched the cremation. These are all things that I experienced, so I have lived experience, and I'm speaking to you right now. Now, if one of
Mm.
my children transition before me, I might tell you to F off with all of this because I gotta go through my
Right.
process. Or I might be able to access my tools and my knowing. Yet that's why we need community, because this isn't about perfection. It's about reminding each other, wait, you've fallen asleep to certain things. You think you are this thing, and that's what's causing you to have the suffering and not be in joy, not play, because it hurts too much. It's too painful. Because I've identified in this story, in this narrative, and I don't know how to break out of that. It feels like a prison. So when I speak, I have the tools and I'm actually implementing them in the real time right now. So I'm walking my talk. If life presents that one of my children have to try, I don't know how I'm going to deal with that. Yet I know that the tools are there. Yet the process of that, it's always a process. Like, when you're finally in the arena, in the lived, it's like, how do I use the tools to process and be in the experience? And remember my one life to experience, because time is a tool, it's not a toy. But we don't use
Mm.
the tool wisely. We use it as a toy a lot of times.
I think sometimes um I feel like we just don't think about time at all. Sometimes we just take time and a lot of things for granted, and then we in hindsight see, oh, that's where it all went. And I think, like you said, I agree. Time is a tool. We should be very conscious of it and try to use it in the best way that we can to help it help us pretty much.
Sometimes people use time out of desperation, and then they have to be high achievers and fill it with so much and so much and so much, where they don't even know how to just be. They get afraid that they don't have enough time, where the only time you have is in the moment right now. But they're in their head trying to maximize, maximize, maximize rather than,
Mm.
can you be in the stillness? Can you appreciate what's here right now without feeling you have to achieve something to get a sense of worth and feeling good enough?
Yeah, that's a funny one too, because if we talk about time, obviously we all know what the past is. We all know what the future is, and we have uh like when I talk about the past, you know what I mean. And if I talk about the future, you know what I mean. But at the end, and we kind of joked about it with the time difference before as well, but at the end, all we ever have is the present. That's the only
Exactly.
time that we're ever in.
Our mind is so great that it creates imagination. And a lot of people don't know how to use their imagination properly.
Mm.
It's really anchored in lack rather than potential and possibility. And I'm one I'm much better than I was at one point, yet my imagination will still go into some dark places or into lack because there's fear activated and I'm not being able to acknowledge it and feel the vulnerability and know what, my life experiences have caused, so I'm like, "I don't wanna experience that again." Yet it's always remembering you have capacity. Whatever life presents, you have the capacity.
I feel like a theme of the things we just discussed in the last couple of minutes is also maybe kindness to oneself, because we talked about the perfectionism, the obviously striving towards things, but then also being human and just um, like you said as well, that oh, I want to be as productive as I can, and then we get into this paradox again, where because we want to be so productive, we're not even here, and so I feel like is that very important as well for us to be so kind to ourselves and just acknowledge that we aren't perfect, right?
Exactly. And allowing there to be a new definition that imperfection is safety. You're allowing yourself to feel human because feeling human is very vulnerable. When you know, like, I understand that I'm not like a human being. Like, I understand that I'm not this body and that I'm an energy that will transform afterwards. Yet this body still feels pain that activates a lot of things and it still experiences things and it has a narrative of this and that and it has wounds. So of course when I'm experiencing there's all kinds of stuff that I have to manage in there. Yet I've had a decade to, access some profound tools and implement them. Yet at the end of the day, it's not all of us to be one way. That's what like, we really don't we talk about diversity, but we really don't know how to be in the diversity.
Right.
It's like the only reason why I brought the production like, productivity and I don't feel like I have enough time, that is an indicator that your nervous system is dysregulated. So you're doing things out of fear again and not feeling.
Right.
It's not about not being productive or a high achiever. It's asking yourself, what is fueling that? Is it actually you in there, or is it something that you're trying to avoid and it's giving you a sense of safety rather than being safe right now?
I feel like that's a thing for long-term happiness as well, is that why. Because we can do a lot of things and we can be successful at a lot of things, but it might eventually not make us fulfilled or happy because there just wasn't a right why. That's kind of what you're talking about, right?
What's your intention? What's your why? Have you like most people have they even asked themselves, why am I doing this? Like sometimes like we're going into the Christmas season and some people celebrate that. Some people don't. Yet it's even asking when there's traditions, why am I doing this? Like, a lot of times we're doing tradition because it was passed down
Mhm.
and we were told to, and we weren't allowed to even question it or even remix it to make it make sense for us and to really be fulfilling for us.
Right.
But if I have a tradition, make me understand why this is benefiting my life. Like the school system, a lot of things that we learned, it's like children will continuously keep asking, why am I learning this? Like I'm not ever being able to implement this in my personal life. This doesn't even, I'm not even interested in this stuff. And then they get pushback when they question these things and they're called disruptive and disrespectful. And it's like, no, they're asking some really important questions that you're not even able to answer. Just do as you're told. I don't even know why we're doing it. Just do it. It's like, what? Why can we not inform? And so that's where you can take charge of asking yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I reaching for the converter? Why am I reaching for the sugar? Why am I reaching for the social media? Why am I and if you can answer it and say, I need to numb, okay. At least you have your why and you have your answer rather than just avoiding to be upfront with yourself. Because the biggest thing about change is you need to be honest with yourself. Honesty doesn't mean perfection again. Honesty means, yeah, I need to either drink right now because it's too intense. At least acknowledge that. Not just blindly start drinking and No, acknowledge that it's overwhelming and I don't know how to cope right now. So that eventually, when you acknowledge that, you start to get an internal dialogue. There's something more that we can engage in. But if you go in pure denial and just blindly do things without questioning yourself, you lose a lot of chunk of time.
Yes. Um, well, Natalie, I feel like I could do this for hours, but I think it's a good way to end it as well. Having asked some important questions here at the end, shining a light on some of the things that are happening around us, and everyone can take those with them and answer them for themselves. So, if you just want to tell us lastly, for the people that listened, that all this resonated with, where can we find out more about you, more about the stuff that you put out? Where can we find you?
My website is liftoneself.com. That's liftoneself.com. They can book a 15-minute discovery call, see if we can work together. I also have a podcast called Lift Oneself, where the intention is to remove stigma around mental health. And I'm also on social media under Lift Oneself, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. And so in there, I create community, I create dialogue, videos to engage with people to, do that inner work. So those are the places that they can find me and, send me an email. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much for spending your time here. I really, really appreciate it. And if there was anything that felt like an aha or there was a curiosity, send me an email and ask a question. I'm always open to answering questions as you saw. And if I don't know an answer, I don't know an answer. Yet I'll give you whatever my perception. Yet I do have some very profound tools that are a benefit to anybody that needs to start developing tools within themselves. And as you touched on kindness, that is the one phrase that I leave with everybody is to remember to be kind to themselves. In a world that wants to use judgment and punishment, we don't realize that we chastise ourselves, and that's not where growth is gonna be. It's in the kindness and understanding of compassion, of having radical compassion when some dense emotions are coming up and you don't wanna feel them. We're very quick to wanna criticize, so it takes the edge off of feeling that. Yet if we allow kindness, then there becomes a profoundness of being authentic and feeling those authentic emotions.
Yes. Very cool. I will put all the links in the description as well, obviously, so everyone can find that easily. Um, so yeah, Natalie, thank you for your time as well. Thank you for sharing your insights. And yeah, just being here and creating this with me together. I appreciate it. It was a cool one.
I appreciate you, Mike, and I appreciate what you're bringing into the podcast world. It's a breath of fresh air and it's needed. So keep shining your light, Mike. It's really, really appreciated.
Thank you. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. And with that, I say bye, everyone.